guys, I am Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Origins Mer-Man. That is right, I am finally rounding out my review of the newest wave of Masters of the Universe Origins figures, so let's dive in and take a look at Mer-Man. Of course, he comes on that same style blister card packaging that is reminiscent of the vintage Masters of the Universe toy line. We got our blister bubble that showcases our figure within. We've got our mini comic behind that. And as we rotate this around to the backside, we are treated to more beautiful artwork. It's been my favorite part of the Origins packaging so far. I love this because we've got Mer-Man swimming under the sea with lots of cool sea creatures. But if you look up on land up there, check that out. It's a nice homage to the vintage Spydor box art with Battle Armor He-Man battling Battle Armor Skeletor inside Spydor. I absolutely love the Easter eggs that are hidden throughout the artwork in this line. And then down below that, we are treated to the cross-sell showing all the other figures available in this particular wave, as well as our little action feature call-out, which basically just tells you he's articulated and can hold his sword. Because that's really all we get as far as action features go with this particular figure. So, let's go ahead and get him pulled out of that packaging and get a closer look at him. So of course, this is the mini comic that comes packaged with Mer-Man. It's the exact same comic that comes with all the rest of the figures in this wave, but it is a really neat comic. It features some beautiful artwork featuring all the characters in this wave, like Zodak and Mer-Man and She-Ra. This one is the international release, it's worth noting, so that's why it doesn't have any word balloons in there. So the US release will actually have the word balloon so you can read the story. All right, we got Mer-Man outside of the packaging. As always, I want to start with the tape measure to show you that the figures stand just shy of a full 6 inches tall, but they are in that 5.5 inch scale. The vintage figures all had squat poses, so if you were to actually squat these guys down just like the vintage figures, they fit in with the old toy line quite well. The proportions are all the same, so basically the same thing we've seen across the line so far. And just like in the vintage toy line, Mer-Man does reuse a lot of parts here. I mean, the body is basically Skeletor's body. You can see you got the same finned arms, you got the same boots there. So all of that is the same, with the only differences being the colors and then the armor and the head on this particular figure. But again, that plays true to that of the vintage toy line, so that is exactly what we have come to expect with Origins here. So one thing worth noting is, of course, the head sculpt on this one is inspired by that vintage action figure, as opposed to being based on the cross-sell art. If you guys aren't familiar, the artwork on the back of the packaging in the vintage toy line had a head that looked completely different than what the head on the toy looked like, and a lot of people liked that card back artwork. But that's the head that we just recently got on the PowerCon exclusive Lords of Power pack, which came with a Mer-Man. So I want to go and start by comparing these two side by side, because this shows you the two very distinct looks for Mer-Man with the two different heads. Now, the PowerCon exclusive version did also have a lot more painted details and a lot of differences going on. Like, for example, the belt and the armor are separate pieces on the PowerCon version, whereas on this retail release, they are one solid piece. Also, the colors are different. You'll notice that the skin tone is more of a dark bluish green on the PowerCon version, as opposed to the much brighter green on the retail release. This is going to pose problems for anybody that was hoping to be able to swap heads between these two, because the skin tones will not match. Now, if you've got both of these figures, I don't necessarily know why you would need to swap the heads, unless you just really like that toy head and you want to see it on the other Mer-Man body that's got the more detailed arms and boots and all that good stuff. So it can cause a problem if you were hoping to swap parts between the two figures. But it's two very different looks for Mer-Man, and honestly, I'm glad that we've got both versions in this line. So yes, bright, vibrant colors on this figure. That seems to be the norm with Origins. And if we look at that head sculpt there, I do want to kind of point out that the eyes seem a bit smaller than the eyes on the sculpt of the vintage figure. We'll see that more when we compare them later on. Also, the paint job is a bit sloppy on this figure. His left eye pupil is a bit splotched, and then the orange around the face is also very splotchy. It just doesn't seem very clean on this. I haven't had too many problems with sloppy paint on these figures, but unfortunately this Mer-Man right here is a little sloppy on the face. That doesn't mean they all will be, but it is worth pointing out. There's no extra paint on the armor, just like on the vintage figure, but it is a brighter yellow than what we saw in the vintage toy. I do really like that he's got the green belt, which is a great nod to the first release, the 8-back Mer-Man, because later on in the vintage line, they stopped painting his belt, so they weren't all green belts. So we got the green belt on this one, which is really nice. But then the legs and the arms, they are all just molded in that bluish green plastic, so there's no extra paint detail on any of that. Articulation is exactly what you would expect. You do have a ball joint at the head, so it can look left, right, up and down. You got those ball-like hinges at the shoulders, forwards, backwards movement, swivels at the elbow. You got the bends at the elbow, which are very tight on this guy. Very, very tight. Sometimes you got to loosen these up on here. The hands are on a swivel. You'll notice I just popped the hand out, but that goes with the swappability that I'll show you in just a bit. So you can swivel the hands. You can hinge at the hands. You got the swivels at the waist. You got the ball-like hinges at the thighs, so legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards. Swivels at the knee, bends at the knee, swivel at the boot cut. And then the ankles move forwards and backwards as well as rock side to side. All the articulation is nice and tight on this guy. None of it feels loose. Some of it's a little too tight like the elbows, but nothing feels like it's floppy or that he's going to fall down or anything like that. So I showed you real quick. We do have the interchangeable parts. If you're not already familiar with this, all of the Origins figures basically have this exact same breakdown where the head's removable off the ball joint, the arms are removable at the shoulders, the hands are removable at the wrists like I just showed you there. You can also remove the torso at the waist, and you can remove the feet at the boot cut. This is all done on purpose. It's a play feature that's really not advertised on the packaging, but the whole point is for mixing and matching. You can swap all these parts around if you want to do something like that. So the only other thing we've got going on with Mer-Man here is his corncob sword. And it looks extra like corncob because of how bright yellow it is on this one. Yeah, it's supposed to be like coral or something like that, but I think a lot of us have always called this his corncob sword because that's what it looks like. He can hold onto it in his right hand. It's a very, very tight grip because it's got a very thick bone handle, which, to be fair, looks almost identical to the vintage sword, but it's a bit of a tight fit in his hand. You do have to kind of squeeze it in there between his fingers, but once he's got a hold on it, he does get a tight grip on it. It doesn't seem to be as bad as how He-Man drops his power sword on the San Diego version of He-Man that we looked at a while back, but it is still a really, really tight fit. All right, guys, it's comparison time. The other figure I want to show this guy next to, of course, is the vintage Mer-Man action figure. So you can see these two standing side by side, and here's where you can really see what I was talking about with the colors being so much brighter on this new figure, as well as the face. Like, the eyes are just bigger, and they're like a brighter white on the vintage figure, as opposed to the more yellow eyes, and they're a bit smaller on this newer figure here. So there you go, my friends. That is a look at the Masters of the Universe Origins Mer-Man action figure. He's one of my favorite characters. He's always been one that I've really liked. He's also one of the original 8-back figures, meaning he was one of the first 8 action figures released in the original Masters of the Universe toy line, which means we've got 7 out of the 8 now in Origins. We are only missing Stratos as of right now, so that is pretty cool. These have not quite hitting the store shelves in the US just yet. This is an international release, which I actually borrowed from my friend Carlos just so I can do this video. So shout out to Carlos for letting me borrow his Mer-Man figure. Make sure you check out the Origins Facebook page that he helps to manage. I'll link that down in the video description. Guys, thank you so very much for watching. Leave me a comment and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.
The Toys of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is available for pre-order now. This official guidebook is published by Dark Horse Books and features over 750 pages of photos and information on your favorite He-Man and She-Ra action figures. And don't miss out on the exclusive bundle pack available for pre-order now from PowerCon. This bundle includes the official guide as well as an exclusive character guide supplement that you won't be able to buy anywhere else. Don't miss out. You have the power.